Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Tatsumi. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Tatsumi. Now Tatsumi is currently live, it's a game fan campaign, so you can check out their link down below for everything that they have planned, but with that in mind, this is both a sponsored video and a prototype copy in front of me, so everything is components subject to change and things like that. Now, one thing to note before I start talking about the game in general is because this is a prototype, the game plays with all of these rings inside of this tray, and we do have the actual, what the component will be made out of here in front of me, so it will not be plastic like this, but it will be what this material is. So you can see that they're a bit nicer and smoother, but that is not what I have in front of me to be able to show you in the general prototype. Tatsumi is going to be a very puzzle-like game, where players are going to be taking their different dragons, flying all around the board, moving around trying to pick up different elemental rings. Now you're going to collect the elemental rings, but then you need to then spend them on a shrine. So you'll spend them on a shrine to be able to score for those rings and place them onto your island board. I'm going to get into all of that in a minute, but the general pace of play is that you're going to be moving around trying to pick up these different rings and then place them into your island board for both immediate victory points and endgame scoring points. And on top of that, players are going to have these sanctuaries to play with as well, and on top of that, their island boards are going to be a bit of a personal puzzle. Now before we get started, what I have set up in front of you is a two-player game. However, this is on the general symmetric board side, and this is an asymmetric board side showing you something a little bit different, which is the Burning Island. So just know that this is set up on two different sides, and with that, I also have the two dragons showing, and the dragons have a general move ability as well as a special move ability. So I have the general move one showing here as well as the special move showing here. That way you have a bit of everything you're able to see. Now these are the sanctuary cards, and when you're playing in a two-player game you only have two available. When you're in a 3 or 4-player game there is a third card available. So just know that there is an additional way to get points and scoring when you have more players in the game, and also when you have additional players there will be more rings here placed in the board. Now with that, in Tatsumi, players are going to be taking turns back and forth until the end game is triggered. The end game will be triggered once enough of these have been emptied. When any of these areas are emptied, a token will be placed in there, and when the 13th one is placed, the end game would be triggered. However, you are going to be placing these rings inside of your player board, and when you do so, if you are ever not able to place a ring, then the end game would also trigger. Now, the way to collect these rings is going to be a bit tricky, where it's a little bit of a puzzle for players to figure out, especially as the game starts to escalate. So you can see the top rings that are available, and when you move your dragon, you're going to be able to move it orthogonally or diagonally, and then you're going to collect two rings that are adjacent to it. So I could move my dragon to here and then collect both of these rings for the red dragon. Now whenever you move, you also collect the ring that you were on, so we'll also get this black ring here, and then play is going to pass on to the blue player. Now the blue player is going to be able to look around, and let's see, they're also gaining a blue when they move, so I think that their best bet would be to move one up here, and then take this ring, as well as the two blue around them as well. Now, I already went over how the dragons move regularly, which is going to be around the board, but all of the dragons are going to have a special way to move around as well. So for the red dragon here, you have Gather to claim the topmost ring in the two nearest unguarded seawalls in a straight line, skipping vacant seawalls along that line. So that is a great way for you to be able to skip the vacant seawalls as you start entering the end of the game, and you need to start grabbing rings that are perhaps near each other, but you wouldn't be able to grab with a regular grab, and this also allows you to be able to grab in a straight line. Now the reason that you want to collect these elemental rings is to place them into your island, but you're not able to do that right away. So there are these different shrines that are all around the board, and when you don't use an action to collect the different rings, you're able to fulfill these shrines instead. For example, looking at this shrine over here, if the red player on their next turn was able to draw two black tiles, which I'm sure they would be able to do, they would be able to, let's see, because they're also drawing one from being here. So they would be able to move to here on their turn, draw the one that was there, and then they would be able to draw this one and this one, setting them up for the next turn to be able to fulfill this. So let's have the blue player take a turn just to move that forward. Grabbing yellow would be great for them, so we'll have them move to here and take this one and this one, as well as the red where they previously were. So now you can see everyone is starting to gain quite a bit of rings, and now for this red player, they're able to move and stay adjacent to this side of the shrine, collect this black one that they were on, but unfortunately, because they already have 3 rings, you can only ever have 3 of the same color, they're actually not able to collect this. So this would actually go back and stay there. Now, because of that rule where you're only able to keep 3, you are able to do your action before you move instead. So we're going to back this up a little bit and have us fulfill this shrine here. So this is going to be for 2 blue rings, and then 3 of the same of either red, black, or blue, and we do have the 3 black. So we'll place this in front of this player and put our rings on to show that we were able to fulfill this shrine card. A new shrine card is going to be able to come out, and then this player is going to be able to place these 5 rings into their island, which is very exciting. So when you place your first one on the island, you have to place one on the edge perimeter, which we'll do now. Let's see. And you do also have to match the same color to the symbol that is there. So where we have a blue one here, we'll place our blue there, and then we're going to place an additional blue. And you will score points for each grouping. Now, we will get more points for keeping the blacks together, but we do need to fill this black one over here. I think for now we'll keep them together because we'll get more points. But as you can notice, the way that I am placing these is because this is the Burning Island. The Burning Island says when you place rings, you may not place a ring directly crossing a burned connection. So that means where there's this burned connection here, I would not be able to place this ring here because it's kind of blocked off for me. But you are able to eventually get to every spot on this board as you start filling out the different areas. So you are at a little bit of a disadvantage when placing, and it's a little bit more of a tricky puzzle, but you are still able to be able to do everything. Now when you do so, you're going to score points for each ring color that you place for the largest group. So here with the blue, we have 2, so you'll get 1, 2 points, and we have 3 of the black, bringing us up to 5 points. Now if I do place a black in the future that is not connecting to it, I'm still able to score for the largest group on my island, not the group that was recently placed to, so keep that in mind. Now placing these rings into your island is going to be a personal puzzle, and it's going to be one of the most challenging parts of the game where you're deciding where to place them and what victory points to get now versus in the future. But the ones that you place are also very, very important because they're all set collection for you at the end of the game. So for each of these spots where you have to put a particular color, for example here where I already placed 1 blue, you'll get these victory points at the end of the game, getting up to 10 victory points for having 4 of the same color. That means I would have to have all 4 of my blue areas encircled with the rings by the end of the game, but if you're able to do all of them by the end of the game, that would be a total of 40 points for you. Now players are also able to interact with these sanctuaries over here. So every turn you will be flying and moving your dragon around, collecting the ring that was underneath it, but then you'll be choosing from 3 different options, 2 of which you already know. One will be collecting the rings that are there, the second is fulfilling the different shrines, but the third would be choosing to interact with the different sanctuaries. So this one is, you would have to, at the beginning of the game, you start with 5 different scales. So you can see that the red dragon still has their 5 scales available, and you're able to place either all or a few. So for this one, it's residence. Shed all of your scales. For the rest of this game, score 1 victory point every time you fly over a vacant seawall. So if I did want to use this in the beginning, which again wouldn't be that beneficial in the beginning, I could spend all of my scales here, and then every time I flew over one that was vacant and had one of these tokens in it, I would get a victory point for that. But for this other sanctuary, you're able to shed a scale onto this card to reposition your dragon to any space, claiming the topmost ring as usual. So this is one where you would only play 1 to this sanctuary, and at the end of the game, this sanctuary is going to be worth victory points. Whoever has the most scales on this card is going to get 4 victory points, and additionally, you'll get a victory point for each of your scales that is on this card. So it may be to your best advantage to get at least 2 or 3 on here before you spend all on residence. Now these sanctuaries are all variable. There are others that come in the game, and you'll be shuffling up a deck and choosing from these. So these are just the ones that I chose to show you for the preview, but just know that there are others used, and again, as I said earlier, there are ones used for a 3 to 4 player game as well. Tatsumi is going to be one of those games where at the beginning of the game it seems like everything is available to you. There's all of these rings and all the different colors and you feel like you could fulfill any shrine. But as these start emptying and the different rings that are available for you to get, the colors are going to become more and more limited, and because everyone wants that set collection at the end of the game, everyone's going to try to be making sure that they have at least 4 of every color because that is a huge amount of points. So the game can get very, very tricky as the areas start emptying up on you, and then it's really a big decision, like I said, of when to shed your scales, which different sanctuaries to use, and which rings to go for because your opponent might be going for them. You can only hold 3 of every color, but it's up to you when to decide to fulfill the different shrines, so it can be really tricky if you think you need to grab more colors and grab those rings before your opponent, but you don't want to grab too many and not spend them before the end of the game because then it was a useless action and you're ending up with all of these rings that you never even got to place into your island. Now there is a lot of asymmetry here where you can either choose to play with the symmetric islands, or you can use the asymmetric islands as well as the asymmetric moving abilities for the different dragons, so there's a lot of variability there for you. As I said, this game is currently live on GameFound. You can check out the link down below to see everything that they have planned. I have been Professor Meg, and thank you all for watching the Board Game Co channel. I'll see you next time. Bye!